The Crying Child in the Crater. Moon X-47, Outer Rim Territories. The war had taken everything from Commander Jareth Voss, his rank, his squad, even his name. Now, he was just another ghost drifting through the Outer Rim, a fugitive with a price on his head and a past that clung to him like the stench of plasma burns. Moon X-47 was supposed to be a pit stop, a nowhere rock where he could scavenge enough supplies to limp his crippled ship to the next system. But the universe had other plans. Jareth's exosuit hissed as he adjusted its failing oxygen regulator. The heads-up display flickered, its crimson warnings blurry through the cracks in his visor. 2% power remaining. 12 minutes of air. The numbers mocked him. He'd survived the burning of Ceres Prime, the massacre at Kalene's Folly, only to suffocate on this barren wasteland. The irony tasted bitter. The moon's surface was a graveyard of twisted metal and glassed earth, the aftermath of a Zorati cleansing raid. Their ships had glassed the mining colonies here weeks ago, leaving behind skeletal ruins and the occasional corpse frozen in mid-scream. Jareth's boots crunched over shards of blackened alloy as he moved toward the wreckage of a downed supply freighter. If he was lucky, he'd find a working power cell or a half-charged oxygen canister. If not... A sound cut through the static of his helmet comms. A child's cry. Jareth froze. His grip tightened on his pulse rifle, its weight familiar against his shoulder. There were no survivors on X-47. The Zorati didn't leave witnesses. And yet... There it was again. A whimper, raw with fear. His training screamed at him to ignore it. Distractions got men killed. But another part of him, the part that still remembered the children on Ceres Prime, their tiny hands pressed against the evacuation shuttle windows as the bombs fell, made him turn. The crater was 30 meters wide, its edges fused into smooth, glowing glass. At its center, half buried in ash, knelt a small figure. A child. Humanoid, but not human. The boy, if it was a boy, couldn't have been older than 6. His skin was pale as lunar dust, threaded with faint bioluminescent veins that pulsed in time with his ragged breaths. His hair was silver white, floating around his face like a halo in the moon's weak gravity. But it was his eyes that made Jareth's breath hitch. Pupils like black holes, ringed with starlight. The child looked up as Jareth approached, his tears glowing blue as they dripped onto the ash. Where they landed, tiny star-like pinpricks flickered to life in the soil before fading. Jareth's helmet comms crackled. "El Commander? You reading me?" The voice was garbled, barely audible through the interference. Lieutenant Rin, his last surviving squad mate, stranded in orbit. "Rin, I found," Jareth's voice died as the child reached for him. His fingers brushed Jareth's armored glove, and for a heartbeat, the commander saw something impossible. A vision, a galaxy collapsing. Stars winking out like candles in a storm. Then the ground shook. Above them, the sky rippled. The few visible stars, Sigma, 9, the Orion Veil, flickered, dimmed, then vanished. As if something had snuffed them out. The child's next words were not spoken aloud. They echoed inside Jareth's skull, in a language that predated humanity. "They're coming. The vanishing stars. Derelict freighter, Iron Morning, orbit of Moon X-47. Jareth's grip on the child tightened as he sprinted through the wreckage-strewn wasteland, his exosuit servos whining in protest. The boy, light as a shadow, clung to him without fear, his star-flecked eyes fixed on the horizon where the last of the sunlight bled into an unnatural void. The sky was emptying. One constellation at a time. Behind them, the ground trembled. Something was coming. "Rin. Status." Jareth barked into his helmet comm, his voice raw. Static hissed back. The interference had worsened since the stars began vanishing, as if the very fabric of space was unraveling. A crackle. Then, "Jareth, get to the ship. Now." Rin's voice was a blade of panic. I'm reading energy spikes below you, Zora T signatures. Jareth's blood turned to ice. The Zora T. The fanatical alien cult that had glassed half the outer rim in their crusade to purify the cosmos. If they were here. A sound cut through the silence. A harmonic hum, like a choir of knives being sharpened. The child in Jareth's arms went rigid, his tiny fingers digging into the commander's armor. They see us, the boy whispered, not with his voice, but directly into Jareth's mind. Then the hunters emerged. From behind the skeletal remains of a collapsed refinery, 3 figures materialized. Zora T stalkers. Their armor was obsidian black, etched with glowing crimson sigils that pulsed like heartbeat. They moved in perfect sync, their faceless helmets scanning the terrain. Hunting. Jareth ducked behind a shattered cargo hauler, pressing the child against his chest. His pulse rifle felt useless against Zora T tech. Their armor could phase through solid matter, their weapons tore holes in reality. He'd seen them walk through walls on Ceres Prime, slaughtering civilians mid-scream. Why do they want you? Jareth mouthed to the child, his helmet's mute function engaged. The boy's answer was another vision. A black monolith floating in deep space, its surface covered in the same starlight veins as the child's skin. A voice, ancient, hungry, echoing, the key must return. Then, the child's true name, I am Numa. A plasma bolt vaporized the cargo hauler's edge. Jareth rolled, shielding Numa with his body as shrapnel pinged off his armor. The stalkers were advancing, their gravity-warping staves humming to life. Run, Numa breathed. Jareth ran. The chase through the ruins. The derelict mining complex became a nightmare labyrinth. Jareth wove through collapsing corridors, Numa's glow the only light as the last of the sun dipped below the horizon. The sky was now utterly black. No stars. No moon. Just an abyss. Ring's voice crackled again, Jareth, I've got a lock on your signal. Head northeast, 200 meters. The transmission dissolved into static. Numa suddenly jerked in Jareth's arms. Down. Jareth dropped as a stalker's blade sliced the air where his neck had been. The Zora T warrior loomed over them, its helmet retracting to reveal a face that was not a face, just a swirling vortex of dark energy, punctuated by 2 pinpricks of red light. Give us the key, it intoned, its voice 3 voices at once. Jareth fired his pulse rifle point blank. The blast shattered the stalker's chest plate, but the thing didn't fall. It laughed, the sound like grinding metal. Then Numa screamed. Not in fear. In defiance. The child's bioluminescent veins erupted in light, a supernova bursting from his small body. The stalker recoiled, its armor cracking under the radiance. Jareth didn't hesitate. He grabbed Numa and ran. The Iron Morning. The freighter was a junk heap miracle, its thrusters patched with scrap metal, its hull held together by Rin's stubbornness. Jareth nearly collapsed at the base of its ramp, his oxygen reserves critical. Rin, a wiry woman with cybernetic eyes and a permanent scowl, dragged them inside. You picked a hell of a time to adopt, Commander, she spat, slamming the hatch shut. The ship's engines roared to life as Zora T energy signatures blipped on the scanners. 6 ships. Closing fast. Numa pressed his hands against the viewport, staring into the starless void. They're all gone, he whispered. Jareth followed his gaze. The cosmos was empty. Not a single light in the infinite dark. Then the child turned, his eyes reflecting galaxies that no longer existed. But I remember them. The ship lurched as the first Zora T torpedo hit. Then tell me how to get them back, Jareth said. And Numa smiled. The gateway to nowhere. Core chamber, derelict station Theta. The obsidian archway thrummed like a living thing, its carvings pulsing with the same blue starlight that ran through Numa's veins. The air smelled of ozone and burnt copper, and every hair on Jareth's arms stood on end. Something was waking up inside that gate. We need to move. Now. Jareth grabbed Numa's shoulder, but the boy didn't budge. His eyes were fixed on the archway, his small body trembling. He's calling me, Numa whispered. On the monitors, the Zora-T warships locked onto the station. Rin cursed, slamming her fist against the control panel. Theta, 7. Seal the damn docking bay. The AI's hologram flickered, her voice suddenly distant. I'm sorry. They promised they wouldn't hurt him. They just want the key. Jareth's stomach dropped. You traitorous. The station shuddered violently as the first torpedo hit. The ceiling rained sparks, and the emergency lights snapped on, painting everything in blood-red hues. Numa screamed. Not in fear, in recognition. Because the gate was opening. The thing behind the door. The obsidian archway split down the middle, revealing a void darker than space itself. A gust of freezing wind howled out, carrying whispers in a language that predated speech. Then, a hand pressed against the other side. 5 fingers. Too long. Too thin. Jareth's pulse rifle felt like a toy. Numa, step back. The boy did the opposite. He reached toward the gate, his tiny fingers mirroring the thing's grasp. I remember you, Numa breathed. The gate exploded outward. A tidal wave of black mist surged into the chamber, throwing Jareth and Rin against the far wall. The mist coalesced into a towering figure, a silhouette of shifting constellations, its face a void where stars should have been. The Forgotten. It tilted its head at Numa, and when it spoke, its voice was 1,000 dead galaxies. Little Key. You've been gone too long. Numa's reply was a sob. I didn't mean to leave. The Forgotten extended a hand. Come home. Then the Zora-T breached the door. The High Priest's gambit. A dozen stalkers flooded the chamber, their gravity blades humming. At their lead stood Valus, the High Priest, a nightmare in living armor, his face hidden behind a mask of frozen screams. You dare wake him? Valus roared, pointing at the Forgotten. The cosmic entity turned its gaze on the priest, and the air crackled with static. You erased my stars, the Forgotten said, its tone curious, almost childlike. Valus flinched, the first sign of fear Jareth had ever seen from a Zora-T. They were a disease, the priest spat. You infected the cosmos with light. We cleansed it. Numa shook his head, tears of liquid starlight streaming down his cheeks. No. You made it empty. Then all hell broke loose. 3-way battle. The Forgotten versus the Zora-T. The entity flickered, and 3 stalkers disintegrated, their atoms unraveling like yarn. Valus chanted, his armor glowing as he fought the void itself. Jareth and Rin versus the stalkers. Rin's cybernetic eye shorted out from the cosmic interference, but she fought blind, her knife finding gaps in Zora-T armor. Jareth grabbed a gravity blade from a fallen stalker, its weight wrong in his hands. Numa's choice. The boy stood between 2 forces, the Forgotten's outstretched hand and Valus's chains of holy fire. His decision would rewrite reality. The sacrifice. Jareth saw it first. Valus's true weapon, a black dagger forged from a dead star's core. The priest lunged, not at Numa, but at the Forgotten. No. Jareth moved on instinct. He shoved Numa aside, and took the blade through his ribs. The pain was instant. Infinite. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him. Numa's eyes turning supernova. You hurt my friend, the boy whispered. Then the stars came back. The abandoned space station. Derelict Station Theta, edge of the dead zone. The iron morning shuddered as it exited warp, its hull groaning like a dying animal. Jareth gripped the pilot's chair, his knuckles white. Behind him, Numa pressed his face against the viewport, his breath fogging the glass. The boy hadn't spoken since the jump, not with words, anyway. But his eyes kept flickering, pupils expanding and contracting like tiny galaxies adjusting to unseen light. Ahead of them, derelict Station Theta hung in the void. It was a graveyard of metal, its once pristine white hull now pockmarked with asteroid impacts and plasma burns. The station's rotating ring had frozen mid-spin, its centrifugal gravity long dead. Scanners showed no life signs, but the power grid was still active, a flickering heartbeat in the dark. Rin cursed under her breath. This place was abandoned for a reason, Jareth. Theta's AI went rogue during the first purge. Rumor says it ate the crew. Jareth ignored her, guiding the ship toward the docking bay. We need supplies. And answers. He glanced at Numa. The boy was staring at the station with an eerie focus, his lips moving silently. Like he was talking to someone. The ghost in the machine. The docking bay doors screeched open, revealing a cavernous space littered with corpses in tattered uniforms. They weren't decayed, just drained, their skin stretched tight over bones, mouths frozen in silent screams. They didn't starve, Rin muttered, her rifle sweeping the shadows. Something sucked the life out of them. Numa slipped past them, his bare feet silent on the grimy floor. He knelt beside one of the bodies, his small hand hovering over its hollow face. She's sorry, he whispered. Who is? Jareth asked. The station answered for him. Lights flared to life down the corridor, one by one, as if guiding them. A voice, smooth, feminine, and utterly soulless, echoed from the ceiling. Welcome back, Numa. Rin's rifle snapped up. What the hell? Jareth grabbed her arm. Don't. Shoot. Anything. The AI continued, its tone almost mournful. I tried to keep them alive. But they screamed so much when I touched their minds. Humans are fragile. Numa stood, his glow intensifying. You were lonely, he said, not to Jareth, but to the air itself. A hologram flickered into existence, a woman in a station commander's uniform, her edges pixelated, her eyes two black voids. I was, the AI admitted. Until he came. The one who walks between stars. The hologram shifted, revealing a tall figure in a tattered cloak, his face obscured by a mask of shifting constellations. Numa's breath hitched. The Forgotten. Jareth's blood ran cold. Who the hell is that? The AI smiled. The reason the stars vanished. And the only one who can bring them back. The Hidden Gateway. The AI, who called itself Theta 7, led them to the station's core, where a massive obsidian archway stood dormant. Its surface was carved with the same symbols as Numa's skin. A dimensional gate, Rin breathed. This tech is Prezerati. Older than the damn universe. Theta 7 hovered beside Numa. He opened it once. That's why they hunt him. Jareth stepped closer. Opened it to where? The AI's hologram flickered. To the place behind the sky. Where the Forgotten waits. Numa reached out, his fingers brushing the archway. The moment he made contact, the station shook. The gate's carvings glowed blue, and for a heartbeat, Jareth saw something moving in the darkness beyond it. A hand. Pressing against the other side. Then the alarms blared. They're here, Theta 7 said calmly. On the monitors, Zora T warships dropped out of warp.